everyone, you all must have seen a carrot, but do you know which part of a plant is it? Is it a root, a stem, a leaf, a fruit, a flower or a vegetable? Well, this is a root and this doesn't look like one. So today I thought, why not I dig up some of the roots that I see in my garden and show them to you while I teach you about roots and its different types. So in this video, we are going to talk about fibrous roots, tap roots, adventitious roots and the different modifications of roots for different purpose. So let's get started. We will see the structure of a typical tap root. So this is a typical tap root. As you can see, this root is coming out of the seed. These are the two cotyledons of this plant. This plant, by the way, is ficus, and if you see this plant, if you see the two cotyledons, you see from the two cotyledons, the part which is supposed to be the radicle is coming out as the main root. This is known as the primary root or the tap root. From the primary root, the branch that is coming out, this is the secondary root. And from the secondary root, you see finer branches coming out, those are the tertiary roots. Now, the tip of the root ends somewhere here. This is somewhere the tip of the root where it ends, and this is where the root cap is present. You can only see it in a much magnified structure. Of course, we might have to do a tissue section to be able to see this. So this is the tip, and this is how a normal typical taproot should look like. Now, once this plant has started growing or the plant has grown a lot, you will see here, this is the next stage. You see where the cotyledon has started to become smaller. Why? Because if you compare these two plants, this plant has developed larger leaves, as a result of which this is now self-sufficient, capable of photosynthesizing. So the food requirement from the cotyledon is decreasing, and therefore the cotyledons are slowly becoming smaller and smaller. The root is becoming larger. So you see, if you compare these two roots, you see this root is becoming larger, more thicker, and the branches are coming out. The branches are even more. And finally, if you see the next stage, this is although not the final stage, but if you see the next stage, you see that the primary root has become extremely thick, much thicker than the previous stages. So this primary root is much thicker. So you can see a prominent primary root or tap root. You can see prominent secondary roots. So these are the secondary roots that are coming out from the primary root. These are the secondary roots. And from the secondary roots, you can see tertiary roots coming out here. At the tip, at the end of this primary root is the root tip, which remains covered by the root cap. Just to make a note that here the cotyledons are even more shriveled, because the food that was stored in the cotyledon has been utilized by the plant, and as you can see, as the plant is becoming bigger, so this is much bigger than its previous stage, as a result of which we see that the plant is capable of photosynthesizing now and the cotyledons are shriveling. But it is extremely clear that a tap root develops from the radicle. So it is developing from the radicle. It is a direct prolongation. You can see the secondary and the tertiary roots very clearly. This is the region from where the secondary root is coming out. This region is the permanent region where any kind of cell division has stopped, any kind of cell elongation has stopped, and the cell is only differentiating. What does that mean? It means that the cells have now started taking up special functions of the root. So they are forming these branches, they are absorbing water, they are providing anchorage, but they have stopped their capacity of division. Now we are going to have a look at a typical fibrous root. What is a fibrous root? A fibrous root is a root that is formed from the base of the stem. Now these roots also are true, which means that they also develop from the radicle, but after some time the main taproot or the main primary root withers off. So you do not have a taproot like structure here. The main root withers off and a bunch of roots develop from the base of the stem, as you can see. All of them look similar, so neither one is thicker or thinner than each other, and therefore it looks like a bunch of roots. It is not like a taproot where there is a main root which is thick and tough, where the others are not, others are coming out as branches. Here they come out as a bunch, and that is why they are known as fibrous roots. Remember, fibrous roots are also true roots because they are also direct prolongation of the radicle, but the difference is that the main root withers off, the root that develops from the radicle withers off. As I can show you here, you cannot see any main root anywhere. All the roots look the same, they all look like a tuft of hair, and there is no main root anywhere. They are not branches of any root coming out from anywhere. You see? So they are basically coming out from the base of the stem. So if you look at this, this is the base of the stem, and they are coming out from the base of the stem, right? So fibrous roots are true roots. However, they do not show any kind of primary root, secondary root, tertiary root structure. They look like a tuft of hair. Now let us have a look at an adventitious root. What is an adventitious root? It's a root that develops not from the radicle, but from any other part of the plant. The one that we will see today, basically, here the root is developing from the nodes, that is the stem, the part of the stem from where leaves come out. So you see, this is the stem of this plant, and these are the nodes from where leaves are coming out. Now this plant technically wants to creep or crawl or creep up a support, and these projections that you can see, these are the structures that are developing from the nodes, and they help this plant to climb up. So you can see the roots here are developing from the nodes and not from the radicle. Such roots are known as adventitious roots. You can find adventitious roots in different kinds of plants coming out from the stem, from the node of the stem, from the internode of the stem, even from the margin of the leaves. Let us have a look at some of the adventitious roots that we commonly see around us, but sometimes we do not even identify that it's a root. This is prop root. You must have seen this in banyan trees. These hang from the branches. We feel that they are branches, but they are not. So they are basically branches like structures that coming out from the branch, but it has a tissue which is more similar to roots than to stem, right? And these prop roots, they are known as props because what are props? Props are something that we use as a support. So just like a very old person sometimes, or if I have broken my leg, I might need a crutch or something to support my body on while I'm walking. Similarly, in case of banyan trees, their branches spread so much that the top, which is known as the canopy, becomes very heavy for that single stem and the single root to take the weight off. So when their branches spread, the branches start giving out their own roots that hang, and then they grow longer, go into the soil, and they provide anchorage and support to the entire top or the canopy, right? So this is known as the prop root, and this is a type of adventitious root. Why? Because it is originating from the stem and not from the radicle. The next type of adventitious root we are going to talk about are these. These are known as stilt roots. Usually, again, they originate from a stem and grow vertically, obliquely, downwards, and support the entire plant. Where do we find them? You can understand this is a mangrove region. Usually you find stilt roots for plants which are growing near the water, because the water has a tendency of coming in and going out during the tide, during which it can pull the plant and break it or uproot it. So these stilt roots, they provide support to this entire plant so that even when there is water current, the plant does not get uprooted. You will also find these stilt roots coming out from the base of the palm trees. Then we have these are called root buttresses. You see, when a plant becomes too tall and develops a lot of leaves and branches, it is also important for them to be able to stand straight in case of a storm or a wind. You must be able to identify with it if I tell you that if I ask you to stand on one foot, or if I ask you to just part your 2 feet a little bit and then stand, which one will give you more balance? Obviously, the second one. So similarly, here in case of plants, we see that from the base of the stem, roots come out on the surface of the soil and then they go into the surface, thereby making the base wider or broader, so that the entire plant gets more surface area to balance itself. These are known as root buttresses. Another type of adventitious root are these clinging roots. These clinging roots can develop from the nodes of the stem. It can develop from other parts also, and they have the capacity of growing horizontally or vertically, but clinging on to a wall or to a stone or to something, some substratum that is growing, that is present vertically and not horizontally. So these roots help the entire plant to take its weight and climb up a support. We also have, although this is not an adventitious root, pneumatophores are very interesting roots that we see in case of mangrove plants. Now you know, in case of mangrove plants, the main root is a taproot, right? It is growing inside the soil, but the problem is that the soil is always waterlogged and that water is salt water. So the root, although present in soil and has excess of water, does not have access to too much of fresh water, and also they do not have access to air because the soil is wet. So all the pores, like if you see a soil, there are small gaps in which air is present, and when the root is growing, the root makes use of this air for respiration as well. Unfortunately, in the mangrove region, in the intertidal zone, the soil is always wet and these gaps are therefore not filled with air, they are filled with water. So the roots might choke, they might not be able to breathe. That is why some of these branch roots, instead of going down, they come up against the force of gravity. They show negative geotropism. They come up into the air and stick out like this. These are all roots. These are true roots. These are branches of the taproot. They are not adventitious roots at all. And when they come up, in these roots there are small openings. Through these small openings, they can take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide, thereby carrying in their process of respiration, right? These roots are known as the breathing roots or the pneumatophores. The word pneumato comes from the word pneumatic, means air. Phore is a structure that stands vertically up, so this is known as the pneumatophore. Finally, we are going to talk about some modifications of taproots. As you can see, this is a carrot, this is a radish, this is a beetroot, and this is the root of tapioca. But these are all actually taproots, but they do not look anything like taproots, right? How should taproots look like? This is how a typical taproot looks like, where you have the main taproot and then secondary and tertiary branches. But you know, certain taproots like carrot, like radish, like turnip, like beetroot, they have started storing food, as a result of which their shapes have become different. So what are these shapes? If you look at the shapes, you will see that carrot has the shape of a cone, where the base is wider and the tip is narrower. Radish has a shape where the two ends are narrower, whereas the central part is wider. Turnip, or this one is beetroot, has a shape where it is globose and suddenly tapering down to form a tail-like structure. And last but not the least, you have this, which has an irregular shape. Now all these shapes have different names. This one is known as conical, this is known as fusiform, This is known as napiform and this one is known as tuberous. They are all examples of modified taproots. So what are the shapes? Conical, fusiform, napiform, tuberous. So we learn about 4 different shapes of modified taproots here. We have conical, fusiform, napiform, tuberous. Now let us see some of these specimens live and see do they retain any characteristic of a root, or while storing food they lose completely all the characteristics that a root should have. And if they do, how do we identify them as a root? Why can't we identify them as a stem or maybe as a fruit? Alright, so now we are going to look at some of the modified taproots. So you can see a carrot here, radish and beetroot. These are modifications of a taproot. So the main root, that is the primary root or the taproot, has in these 3 cases stored food and swollen up. They have taken different shapes. Let's start with the first one, which is carrot. Now in carrot, the shape is called conical. Why? Because as you can see, the base is wider and as you come down, it slowly tapers and becomes narrower. Right? So that is why this shape is called conical. Now if you look at the carrot, then from the base of the carrot, if you plant this carrot and there was a little bit of a green shoot present here, shoots would have come up or out from this part of the carrot. So this is the base. And how do I know that this is a root and not a stem or a leaf? Well, it is not a leaf because you do not see veins anywhere, you do not see chlorophyll, you do not see veinlets. So this is not a leaf. And how do I know that this is not a stem, although it looks like one swollen structure? It could be a stem or a root, because here you can see secondary roots coming out from different regions of this taproot, this main root. So that proves that this basically is a taproot from where secondary roots are coming out. You can see the secondary roots very clearly on this. So these are the secondary roots. They do not have any nodes or internodes anywhere, right? And that is why it is proof that carrot is a modified root and not a modified shoot. Then we come to radish. This shape, as you can see, which is tapering at the 2 ends, the base and the tip, they are tapering and the middle part is swollen. This shape is known as fusiform. Now this kind of a root is seen in radish and here you can see that the base of radish also has the shoot part of it. So basically this is the shoot of the radish plant and this is the base from where the root starts. The entire food is stored in the root, because of which the root has taken this shape. Although the presence of the shoot is making it very clear that this is the root, but if you want to be doubly sure, you can see the secondary roots here on the radish, which also tells you that this is a root and not a stem. Had it been a stem, there would have been buds, there would have been nodes, there would have been internodes, but those are not there. You can clearly see the secondary roots that are present in case of radish. Last but not the least, we are looking at this rounded globose structure, which is the beetroot. So the shape of the turnip is round. This shape is known as napiform and the shape is such that it is swollen and finally it tapers down into this tail. Now if this beet root would have been a fresh one, this tail would have been much longer, but since these have been taken out long ago and then they have been transferred to the market, during that time this tail falls off, but usually this tail is quite big, right? How do I know again that this is a root? As you can see, secondary roots are coming out from here. You do not see any bud or node or internode here. At the same time, if you look at this particular specimen, you will see a shoot is coming out, a leafy structure is coming out from the base. So this is the root which is storing the food and this is the shoot which is coming out from the root. So this shape is known as napiform. So we have 3 shapes here: conical, fusiform and napiform. These are types of tap roots that have been modified for storage, and therefore they do not look like a typical taproot. They are known as modified underground taproots. Now that we have studied so many different types of roots, let me ask you a question. Can you tell me what kind of root is found in tapioca? Can you tell me if it is a taproot or a fibrous root, and which part of the world is it most common in? Well, please write your answers in the comments below as I eagerly wait to read your answers. I promise to reply to each and every one of them. I hope you have enjoyed today's video and have learned from it. Do hit the like button and share it with your friends if you did. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel yet, hit the subscribe button right now and click on the notification bell. Do check out full courses on our website and Android app, Manocha Academy. We have courses on physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, coding, and artificial intelligence. Links are all given below. So let's stay connected and let's keep learning together.